let's start in the SEC, a conference I'm all too familiar with. Spent a good 3 seasons as an assistant coach for Saline not all that long ago. So I get the Ann Arbor rivalries. I know some of the sneakier teams in the conference who can pull off some stunning upsets. I'm looking at you, Jackson. And yes, I've experienced Chelsea's dominance in the SEC firsthand over the last several years. The Bulldogs have sat atop the SEC. So the Bulldogs have won at least a share of the SEC White Division for 7 straight years. Now, last winter, they shared that distinction with Dexter, and as the two tied for first place. But Chelsea has been the pace horse, so to speak, that everyone else seems to chase in the conference. And it's been that way for what feels like forever. I think that may change this season without getting too vague there. But the Bulldogs graduated just 3 seniors last spring, but one of them was 6'4" goaltender and 4-year letterman, Luke Webster, who was an absolute cheat code in terms of SEC action. I wrote in the blog preview on pdspicks.com. Webster played in 72 career games for Chelsea. He lost one game to an SEC opponent. Not just division, the entire 9-team conference. He lost one game. Chelsea's got a lot coming back. Don't get me wrong. And in fact, their top 6 scorers from a season ago were all underclassmen, including your leading scorer, Jacob Corcoran, Lucas Milne, a guy I like a lot. Those are two guys, two scoring threats I like a lot there for the Bulldogs. But I just don't know how you replace a guy like Webster at the most important position in hockey, no less. So it's a tall task for anyone. And I could see that presenting some problems or some growing pains throughout this season. That opens the door to one of my favorite teams in the SEC right now, the Dexter Dreadnoughts. That's right. They had a wicked hot season last year, 21 wins just a season ago. Had a ton of people blowing me up about the quote unquote disrespect and you're sleeping on Dexter. And yeah. I got the DMs in the comments on Instagram. I saw it. And I'll admit it was a rather large senior class who, from the outside looking in, I was expecting a bit of a flash in the pan. A team comes on the scene for a season or two, has a nice run with a particularly tight knit group or a class of players that came up together. They graduate, and then the program falls back on hard times. I'm probably going to end up eating my words here a bit because I don't think that's the case with Dexter here. I actually think third-year coach Kenny Grundy has a chance to really build something here with the Dreads and turn them into a real threat in the SEC. Dexter graduated a pretty important group of seniors, like I mentioned before. Don't get me wrong. And that was partly my concern in buying in last year. But, leading scorer Jeremy Schroeder is back, 33 goals, 61 points just a season ago. Cam Enyedy might have to log a lot of minutes on the back end after they lost their top 2D as well. But there are pieces in place for the Dreads to continue building around for the future. So you are breaking in a new goalie. That's a bit of a concern as well, but kind of the narrative for a lot of teams in the SEC right now. The Dreads may have to, I'll call it smoke and mirror it a little bit, play matchups, try to expose and get your top guys out there in a favorable matchup, play really tight D and stifle some opponents' top offensive threats. But some of you may remember Coach Grundy was a pretty damn successful with a similar roster build during his time at Pinckney. And I remember it all too well, going into the Arctic Coliseum with a Saline team that was better on paper, was deeper on paper, had a better goalie on paper, and the Pinckney Pirates scored 3 goals in the first 2 shifts, and we we ended up getting our doors blown off 7-2. So, thanks a lot for that, coach. I haven't forgotten. But he gets his kids to play hard, and that Pinckney team played like an absolute psychopaths, flying around on a forecheck, playing hard, being tough to play against. If he can get Dexter to play half that structured and motivated as he did with those players at Pinckney, they'll be a real tough out in the SEC. Let me shift gears here to the red division. Your Ann Arbor schools, my Saline Hornets, Bedford on the other side of the conference here. And I got to talk about Pioneer here for a minute. And that's not easy for me to do considering they were, our big rival during my time with Saline. But I think this is their year in other ways than just SEC action. They won the SEC division a year ago, but now I think they're shifting gears and setting their sights on statewide accomplishments. There's a few indicators I look for or come across during the spring, summer, fall that usually tip me off on up and coming programs or teams that might be on the verge of a big year or feel pretty confident about the bunch they got coming in. So when I see 5 guys from one school that you don't normally see at an MDHL tryouts or an MHA tryouts, that's usually a good sign that the coach thinks he's got something brewing this season. Max Khomutin, the top forward for Pio last season. Nolan Kresge, a top defenseman. Nolan Miller, Brendan Stone, newcomer Jack German from the AAA circuit coming over, all at MDHL tryouts this past August. And Comodin and German ended up making it through to the league, but it still tells me enough that these guys think they can compete at this level, and maybe they can. I shared some of my strong thoughts as it relates to the MDHL and the MHA on a recent episode of the pod, and I'd encourage you to go back and check that out as well. But it tells me they think they've got some guys, some studs, some standouts who can play at a high level. Uh, Pioneer doesn't typically have guys in the MDHL or the MHA. You might see one or two here or there, or in a particular season, a couple, but never 5. So I love this. I think it's great. Keep pushing that envelope. We need more of the pioneers of the world knocking on the doors of the MDHL and the MHA. On top of that, I'm told even more AAA guys could be joining the fray for the Pioneers. You got Rocco Mahone, a honey baked kid, Aiden McDonald, Big B, Marco Gruber, another one out of Big B. So if all this holds true, which you just never know as it relates to AAA and high school landscape, there's a lot that can change until the puck officially drops. So if true, Pioneer isn't just an SEC contender. We could be talking about a big push on the state scene as well, and that's really exciting. Um, their non-conference slate isn't typically a gauntlet, but with the right playoff draw, could they make some waves in the D1 playoffs? Time will tell. So